you find somebody online, you kind of do a little bit of research about them, then you do that free webinar and you're like, oh, there's a bit of skepticism there. Of course there is. So you've kind of got to take that leap of faith. So I did. And then it was like, I'm built for this. Now we are three-ish years later, 4 businesses, 6 million turnover.
So Peter, you came on Mastermind in 2020. You bought 4 businesses totaling 6 million of annual revenue. Tell me, you must have a huge amount of business experience in your background. Where did you start?
So I come from the tools. I was an electrical engineer by trade. And then me and my business partner, both engineers. Our first acquisition catapulted us into the business world.
So you're saying that prior to that first deal,
Yep.
you hadn't actually had any business experience at all.
That's correct.
But you'd worked in the sector.
Yes.
So you understood it. Okay. Now, it's quite a journey from employee to 6 million of annual revenue. That's quite an exciting number. 4 deals along the way. You started off in Mastermind. You're now in the Inner Circle group, have been for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So tell me, what started off this entrepreneurial journey? At what point did you think, I don't want to work for someone else, I want to do my own thing?
I think it's always been in there. So I'd always had the intention of working for myself, but I'd always thought it would be in the subcontracting world. So I'd end up being a subcontract in some sort of engineering discipline. But my business partner, Jonathan, he was at the same place since 2007. We met in 2009. Went through college and uni together, become friends through that. All college and uni was part-time, so we were still working full-time employment while studying. Where Jonathan was, his the previous owner, mentor, boss, all of that, got to retirement point. So the opportunity come up to acquire the first business, NDT Electronics, where Jonathan, my business partner, was the natural succession, the only succession really. But he's fantastic technically, great technically. And as we'd got to know each other over a long period of time, although we were both engineers, Jonathan had stuck with the technical side of it. And I was more naturally driven or drawn towards the business side of it. So when this came up, we had actually had a third party investor who was going to put the money in and we were going to run the business. This went on for far too long, done all of the things you teach us not to do.
Okay. I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Jonathan was still working with the previous owner. So tensions were starting to go there because the previous owner was going to exit. There was going to be a new guy come in. So it got to the point where tensions were too high for there. I was getting frustrated because I was still working. I was still on the tools.
So you're trying to put, so what was the deal that was happening then? So there was an investor who was going to put up the money, and then you and Jonathan were going to run the business.
Yes.
But so were you going to have any ownership in the business?
Yes. So we were going to have a small stake in it.
Okay.
I think it was going to be 30% between us.
Okay. So 15% each and 70% to the investor.
Yes.
But this was taking a long time to make happen?
Yeah. So it was just the time factor. It was dragging on and on and on. Then it got to the point where there must be something we can do. So went away, researched how to do it, found yourself, done, right. I think it was like an introductory webinar, and then signed up to the fast track after that, and then the mastermind after that. So that was the October. By the June, we had it bought.
And you'd bought it without the investor.
Correct.
So now you own between you 100% rather than 30%.
That's it.
All right. So yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was a pretty good investment in Mastermind to get to the point of you're not a minority, you now are majority shareholders.
Yes, that's absolutely it. So during that whole process of going through the fast track, the mastermind, learning it, we then I packaged the deal, raised the finance, got the deal over the line. But during that whole process, we were just focused on, let's just get this business. But during that whole process, it was, actually, there's more to be had here. Between the mastermind, packaging the deal and getting it done, I'd actually sent out a couple of 100 letters. So we'd end up with interest in the second business, which then completed the following April, in April 22.
So in fact, you'd made up your minds this wasn't going to be one acquisition, you got a taste for it.
Got a
Now,
taste.
interestingly though, did you have that feeling right back at the beginning when you were talking to the investor? Did you think there were going to be multiple acquisitions, or were you just going to be the people operating that single business?
Before your course, that didn't even enter
Interesting.
the mind. It was just, this is a great opportunity, get into the business world, always wanted to work for myself. We'll have our own little thing, kind of in control of your own destiny. And then it all kind of opened up from there.
So not only did you end up with a far better deal, your ambition was ignited.
Was fed. now it's hungry. I know you've got to, when you find somebody online, you kind of do a little bit of research about them, then you do that free webinar and you're like, oh, there's a bit of skepticism there. Of course there is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people out there. There's plenty of horror stories out there. So you've kind of got to take that leap of faith. So I did. And then the fast track. And I was like, oh, this is so me. Done that, done the mastermind. And then it was like, I'm built for this. And then now we are three-ish years later, 4 businesses, 6 million turnover.
Amazing. It's such a great story, because you made a decision, you took action, you just went for it, and you didn't talk yourself out of it. You just made it happen, which is so good.
Yeah. So it's been an incredible journey. Tough, hard, but
Sure.
Why wouldn't it be?
It requires effort and work. I mean, you don't get to where you've got to without effort and work. And I think if anyone thinks there's no effort and there's no work,
Killing
then
ourselves.
it's delusional, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's wonderful. And you are a regular at our Inner Circle group meetings.
Yeah.
So you're spending time with people who've done similar to you.
Yeah.
Different sectors, different fields, different things.
It's been great to mix with. Everybody's doing this. I say the same thing. Everybody's wanting to build a business through acquisition. But one of the big values I've got from being part of the group is just realizing that you build up this stereotypical image of a person who buys businesses. But when you go and meet the people who are doing it, you're just like, just the same as me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just kind of anybody can do it. Any background, any sector, anybody.
Yeah, I don't think there's any MBAs in the room.
No,
no one with any sort of illustrious business experience spanning decades.
No,
it's just motivated people, isn't it?
People who want to do it.
Yeah,
are doing it, and the MBAs. Every now and then I get kind of, should I do an MBA? Should I go and do it? And then I talk myself out of it, because it's my mindset, the way I go about things. It's different and it's unique, and it requires that creativity. And was worried the right word, that if I go and do an MBA, you're suddenly pigeonholed into, this is how business should be done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It might dampen the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you've done pretty well so far. So you're doing something right, aren't you? And how do you split the business in terms of running it and operations between you and your partner? Is there an obvious split, or do the roles merge?
There is a merge, but the split is, Jonathan looks after the technical side, so the actual delivery of the engineering and the manufacturing is what Jonathan concentrates on. So he's spent 16, 17 years specialising in that particular niche. So he's actually one of the country's leading experts on it now. So he loves that. He's coming up to the end of his PhD. So that's absolutely his. And then the business side of stuff. So the vision, the strategy, the growth, that falls with me. And then there's a natural crossover with operations. But for myself, the sales, the marketing, the strategy, all of that side, love it. I can switch to the other side. I can do the technical side, the design, the delivery. The bit in the middle, operations, that's where we both kind of fall down. So that's where we went and got somebody who specialises in operations.
Excellent. So you found someone who filled the gap in your skill set.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, before I forget, there's something I was very impressed with at the last Inner Circle meeting, is where you discovered that a business that you would have an interest in had been purchased by a private equity firm.
Yes.
And you called up the private equity firm and said, I'll buy that from you.
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine yourself doing that 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, that takes some courage and some confidence and some belief in who you are and what you are doing.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Because
that's
a
was
big step.
Interesting. Yeah. So obviously, as it turns out, all of the businesses so far have been retirement sales just by that. That's the way they have been. So contacting the PE firm was quite interesting.
Yes. And I know them, and they're very entrepreneurial, and you never know what might happen there. But so let's go back to the first deal. Now, you know that I'm an advocate of you don't put any of your own money into the deal. And I do know, because we've known each other for a while, that on that first deal, you did actually put some money in to get the deal over the line. And was that sourced from your savings or?
Yeah, so the bit of money I put in was actually my wedding fund. So we completed the deal in June. Then I was getting married in the following May. I says to my business partner, if I don't get a good chunk of this back by April, I don't need it at all. So thankfully, I was able to take some money out.
It was a high-risk strategy that you...
it was high-risk, okay.
Yeah.
But we were that confident in it. We were that confident in our own ability.
Yes.
And because we knew the business, we knew the sector, I had Jonathan, it was quite low risk.
You were backing yourselves, weren't you?
Yeah, once you knew the detail, it was quite low risk. But from an outside perspective, it may be seen.
And you got the money back out, presumably before your wedding date.
Yes, and lovely wedding, all great. Yeah. So I mean,
so it turned out okay.
The more I think about this, the more crazy it kind of was, because we'd completed on the second business in the April, then I got married in the May.
Right.
So it was just
wow.
It was just all happening one after the other.
Are you a business owner and you want to grow via acquisition? Then you need to be part of my mastermind program, where we hold your hand all the way through the entire process to make sure that your first acquisition is a resounding success. I put some information in the video description below.
So with the second deal, second, third and fourth, did you need to put any of your own money into those?
We didn't have to put any more money in.
Okay.
We were able just to use finance within the group and then leverage the businesses we were buying.
Great. Okay. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell us some of the things that happened along the way with the acquisitions and the negotiation of the deals. Did you go and do the negotiations?
So not much for the first one, because the talks were quite advanced, although they were taking a while. They were quite advanced. And then Jonathan was in there and living it. So there was a bit of an element of good cop, bad cop going on. So that one had already run its course. The second one, I handled all of that negotiation with my business partner support. So I would take it back to him, or I've got to consult with Jonathan. I've got to talk to him about it.
Which actually is a really useful tactic.
It was really
Deferring
useful.
to another decision maker is always very good.
And there was truth in it. But yes, that's how that went on. And then the third one was actually technically a competitor of the first one.
Okay.
And they had contacted us. So they were looking to exit. They'd seen what we were doing. And obviously they knew the business because it was a competitor. And then they wanted out. So they'd contacted us.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So actually consolidating competitors gives you a stronger market position, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It catapulted the first business forward. It was a bit distressed. So there was a lot of stuff we had to sort out. But them two coupled together has just strengthened the market and the market position for them businesses.
And I know that I introduced you in a sort of in the very sort of broad context of what you do, but this is actually more specialized. Just tell everyone what the specialized area is.
So it's industrial radiography. So NDT Electronics, which was the first one, specializes in X-ray, and then the third one specializes in gamma, and they're the two streams of industrial radiography. Then putting the two together, it's X-ray and gamma. And then the competitor you mentioned about the PE firm, they specialize in gamma. So when we got the competitor, which was local to us geographically, putting them two together kind of meant, oh, well, it's too late now for the third one, which was geographically out of region.
Got it. Okay. So with the negotiations, how did you approach price? So placing the first one aside, because the deal had been negotiated by the other party.
Yeah.
With numbers 2, 3, and 4, how did you arrive at the price? How did you reach a value for the business?
The second one, it actually turned out just to be net book value.
Okay.
So that was pretty
And
straightforward.
so that was the one that was slightly distressed.
No, that was the second one, which completed in the April. The other one was a pound deal. So that was the distressed one. And then the third one was based on a multiple.
Okay.
The fourth one.
And how did you reach that number? That's what I'm interested in finding out. What was the methodology? How did it go? You know, was there an accountant involved?
So
quite often there is.
So for the fourth one, we've partnered up or started using a corporate finance team. So as we were getting more serious, we wanted to get the right advice, be with the right advisors, have that credibility. So they were able to provide actually quite a good deal structure for that. But we based it on a multiple, and the multiple was from knowing the industry and what we would be comfortable paying. So knowing what we would have to do to the business, what it would be required to bring it into group, and then moving forward, that's how we based it, based on the multiple.
Got it. Now, let's just go back a step there, because I remember this conversation from the Inner Circle group just a couple of months ago. And you were saying that you've now got a partnership with a corporate finance firm that does all of your fundraising for acquisitions.
Yeah.
And I believe does the cash flows and all of everything required to raise that money.
Yes. Yeah. So we haven't gone to a fundraise yet, but we've actually just this week got the final draft of the financial model. So your cash flow forecasts and everything like that to support a fundraise.
Again, I would say that this is quite an advanced step from where you were in 2020.
Yeah. Just a bit.
just the way you're talking, and just your nonchalant attitude around this. So, well, we're doing this fundraise, and we've got the cash flows sorted. So this is a real next level up of professionalism, isn't it? So what is this relationship with the corporate finance? What is this? Understanding the numbers at a very deep level. What is this going to do to help you on your acquisition journey?
Knowing your numbers, I suppose, for the businesses you've got, and then using that to do a fundraise for further growth, for further acquisitions, and having that back and that advice, that support from a professional, experienced CF team makes you more credible, makes you more reputable, and it'll help you do bigger deals better. If you get involved with a PE firm or venture capitalists or something like that, you're going to need somebody who can either speak their language or isn't dazzled too easily by.
Yeah, and it's hard to imagine someone internal being that person unless you thought ahead and said, we need someone at that level.
Yeah.
And usually you don't have someone internally who is going to be able to present in the correct way to either a larger funder or even to an acquirer.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've done 4 deals in 3 years, which is great for us, and probably more than a lot of people do in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But to the corporate finance team, maybe he's doing 3 or 4 a month. So they're constantly on
absolutely.
it. That's what they live and breathe.
And they've got their ears to the ground as to
they know what's going on,
what's happening, which lenders are keen to lend.
Yes.
Because they don't make money unless they lend. So we've got an incredible path here over the last few years. But where's it taking you? What is the direction of travel now?
So the next few steps for us is consolidate and absolutely make sure the foundations are solid before we move forward. So just as it turned out, 3 of the businesses are quite geographically close. So there's sort of 20-ish miles between them. We're looking to move 2 of them into one premises. Then that will become the group headquarters as well. And then from there, once we've done the move, got that all stabilized, got that settled, the people are settled, happy, operations are settled, everybody kind of knows what they're doing, they're in the right role, the right people, all of that. And then we can go back at the acquisitions, because the worst thing we can do is bring in another business and then that's the straw that does the camel's back. It's great acquisitions, and there's it pains us because there's so much opportunity out there and you see it all of the time and you're like, oh, it would be great if. But if you get the shiny syndrome,
yes,
you can destroy all of it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you've really got to have your kind of sensible head on and stay a bit grounded as much as possible, which is difficult for me because I want the growth. I want to get at it.
And you see the opportunity.
And the opportunity's there, and it's for the taking. And there's so much good we can do as a business. Like, the vision is to champion and support British manufacturing, and I really do believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, I'm not just going on the acquisition trail for a laugh. Like, passion's a bit overused, but I do believe in it.
Yes.
So all of this that we're doing is championing and supporting British manufacturing, and I want to do it right, and I want to do it for the long term. So just rushing into stuff without the foundations being right.
You don't undo the work that you put in so far.
No, we've had a good, tough 3 years, learning everything, learning the basics, building up from there, building the right relationships, ready for that long term, getting the right advisors on board, ready to go at it sort of next year.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So you said about locating into like a head office type building. Have you considered buying that building?
We definitely did consider that, but the location we were looking at and the timing and the facility we needed, it just didn't come together for timing wise.
Okay, we'll talk about this offline because I've got some ideas that might be helpful to you. So going through a period of consolidation, I think, is a really smart move. And what I'd like to do is get you back for a second podcast interview where we talk about what happens after you buy the business. So if you're watching this one, look out for part 2 on the channel. And in part 2, we'll talk about what happens after you bought the business. How did you meet the staff? How did you speak to suppliers, to the customers, and how you managed the integration of the cultures when you're putting 4 businesses together, because that's always the hardest part. The people part is always the hardest part. And before we started filming, we were talking about the people being the asset, the liability, the opportunity, but the headache, all
at once,
all rolled up at the same time. Yeah,
I mean, the people are great, and it's important that you get it right. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, you don't always get it right, or you inherit people that maybe don't fit in with the new business. So it's that's where the hard work really is. But we'll talk about that on a separate episode. What I'd like to talk about now is some of the things you've learned from doing these acquisitions, because people watching us on YouTube or listening to the Business Buying Strategies podcast will be probably considering, do I join Mastermind? Do I buy a business myself? So they want to inform themselves, just like you did before you came and joined me. So what would you say to people who are at the very early stages of looking at buying a business? What lessons did you learn that you could pass on to them?
You can read about it, you can talk to people as much as you want, but until you take some action, until you do some things, maybe it won't go as you kind of planned. Just thinking back to my first phone call with a with a potential seller. So letters went out, phone rang, say, now I've got to answer it. Picked up the phone, went into some sort of speech. I'll tell the story first, then I'll do my reflections. Went into some sort of speech about it, about myself and about what we're up to. And he went, how are you funding it? I was like, okay. It's going to be a combination of debt and capital going in. Depends on the deal structure. And he cut us off again. He says, how are you funding it? Well, I says, well, it depends on the deal structure, how we go about it. No. How are you funding it? Is it cash? No, nobody buys business with cash. It's like, nope, not interested. Thanks, bye. I was like, oh,
and I would imagine
that's an abrupt.
Was that an older seller?
I can't remember.
Because quite often older sellers have this very traditional, cash is king.
Give us me
that's
check.
That's the only thing that counts.
Yeah.
So what were your reflections on that then?
And it was either within days or within hours of the letters going out. So he was obviously very motivated to just have a conversation. The fact he'd rang up was something
in itself. Yes.
Yeah. So looking back, if I'd have just been able to meet him or go and see him, or maybe just have that conversation a bit better, he might have got his exit. He might still be working there now. He might still have his business because of.
Did you keep notes in all those calls?
I do have a few notes.
Because you can go back and say, look, I remember when we spoke, you were a little cynical, a little skeptical, but we've done 3 more acquisitions since then.
Yeah.
Do you think we should have a chat?
Yeah, absolutely, potentially.
Because you never know, right? Because really what people are wanting to know is, are you able to execute? Yeah. Are you someone who can follow through on this?
Yes, yeah. So that bit of experience there, if I'd never sent the letters, if I'd never picked up that call or called him back, I would never have had that first one. So the anxiety, the dread, and everything that builds up on to your first one, got it out the way with. I was like, well, how much worse can it get?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, get stuck in there.
Just do it. The phone calls, the conversations. If you've got some sort of script, I wouldn't recommend reading from the script because they can tell it a mile away. But if you've got some sort of structure to a conversation that you can have,
like a framework to follow
that you can have with people, that'll help you just hold the conversation with the potential seller, and then that'll get you started. And then you'll get so far with the first one, and then you'll get so far with the second one, and the third, and then you never know, your fourth one might be really motivated, and then take it from there.
So what's been the biggest benefit to you of our relationship over the last 4 years in Mastermind, then in Inner Circle? Yeah. What's been the, if you were able to put your finger on one thing, what's been the biggest benefit?
It's the Mastermind. It's having people who are wanting to do the same thing, same ambitions, same mindset together. So the WhatsApp group is really helpful. That's great. And then meeting up collectively. You never know what the conversation's going to be like. You never know what, I was just about to say, you never know what problems people are having. But as it turns out, when you go, either the big problem you thought you had isn't actually that big, or everybody's having the same problem.
Yes. And collectively, you can come up with a whole bunch of solutions. Yeah. And one of those solutions might be the right one for you. Yeah.
So for the past 3-4 years, as I've been coming along, I've been taking a lot, I've been getting a lot, but now my experience is building. I'm starting to do different things. I can start kind of giving back now.
I've noticed that.
It's giving back to the group. So
I've noticed that.
Conversations experience, when you go with a problem, you'd flag it, somebody would laugh, easy peasy, and they'd offer you a solution. You'd be like, well, yeah, it's obvious. Of course it is. Then you go away, you implement it, happy days. But now I've kind of been around long enough, I'm seeing the other side of that. So people are coming up like, I've done this before.
You're no longer the beginner, are you?
Yes.
Yeah, at the beginning you feel like a beginner, but then later...
Until you get started, you're always a beginner.
Yes, absolutely. So what I'd love to do is get you back for a part 2, and we'll talk about what happens after you've bought the businesses. So if you're watching this episode, check out part 2, and Peter will tell us what happened after he bought these businesses and what's going to happen next. Thanks, Peter.
Great. Thanks.